Welcome to Reaper's Creepers. Step into the shadows, where tales of the unknown unfold. Relax, listen, and drift into the dark. I drew a deep breath, bracing myself for the unknown that awaited beyond the door. Then exhaled and knocked. The screen door swung open, revealing Evelyn, her face alight with a beaming smile. "Riley," she exclaimed, flinging the door wide and enveloping me in a hug so tight it threatened to crush my ribs. "I'm sorry, I began to apologize, but she cut me off with a brisk, "Oh, hush and get inside, into the AC." Breaking the embrace, she tugged me into the house with a firm pull. "Adam, Riley's here," she called toward another room, her voice carrying a triumphant edge. "I told you he'd stop by," she added, matter of fact, as if settling a recent debate about my arrival. The scent of food hit me, rich and tantalizing, stirring the hunger that lingered despite my recovery. "I smell food. It smells delicious," I said, my voice tinged with anticipation. Adam emerged from the other room, his gruff tone cutting through as he quipped,
"What makes you think you're going to eat my food, kid?"
A chuckle escaped me, but before I could retort, Evelyn interjected, "Knock it off, Adam. Look how skinny he is." Her words drew a slight eye roll from him, sparking a laugh from me as I shrugged, a wide grin spreading across my face. "I told you," I said, resisting the urge to gloat.
"Shut up, Riley,"
he shot back, his tone dry. "Seriously, Riley, how long were you out there?" Evelyn asked, her question confirming a call from my grandfather to Adam about my impending visit. "I'm not sure, to be honest. You know how terrible I am with time," I replied, earning a small eye roll from her. A faint, solitary laugh rumbled from Adam in the background. "Well, I made extra," she said, her gaze locking onto Adam with a subtle, "I told you so" gleam. "Pot roast, one of your favorites."
"Enough jawing,"
Adam grumbled, as if he'd been itching to eat.
"Let's dig in."
Their banter always amused me. From the outside, the relationship might seem confrontational, but I knew better. They were a formidable team, always guarding each other's backs. They brought out the best in one another, sometimes despite themselves, a testament to a solid partnership forged over 25 years of marriage, learning to work together through imperfections, to build a foundation as unyielding as brick. I'd always admired that resilience. Dinner hit the spot, a warm reunion steeped in light, friendly chatter. Evelyn regaled me with updates on her flowers and paintings, mentioning the greenhouse Adam had built her shortly after they moved here 5 years ago, a project that had expanded her hobby into a passion. As she spoke, a memory surfaced of his struggles with the plumbing for the water misting system, drawing a quiet laugh from me as I listened. At one point, she asked, "Riley, have you found a girl yet? A good one?" Her question triggered a laugh from me. "No," I replied. "I'm still searching. I may have finally found one, but I'm not entirely sure she's a good one yet," glancing at Adam as I spoke. His lack of amusement sobered me, my laughter fading with a heavy sigh as I looked down at my empty plate, guilt settling in for the unintended jab. "Whatever happened with Jess?" she pressed, her tone turning serious, the question striking me like an electric jolt. Unexpected, not painful. I met Adam's gaze, his unspoken "go on" etched across his face. "We weren't compatible," I stated. "I never really liked her anyway," Evelyn countered, prompting another eye roll from Adam. "That's not fair, Evelyn. She was a good girl," I said, remorse creeping in. "I was the problem," I finished. "She's been married, 3 times since you two broke up. Maybe you weren't the problem," she argued, defending me. "No, she was lost, just like me at the time. Still is in a way. Maybe if I'd been a different man, then we'd still be together," I reflected, causing a frown to crease her face, as if she'd just heard the closing line of a tragic play. "We still talk all the time. We still get along. Our split was mutual," I added, lifting the mood. "In fact, we get along now better than we did when we were together," I admitted, the truth of our distant, supportive bond clear. "Would you like some pie?" she asked, steering the conversation back to warmth and friendliness. "You know I do," I replied, a smile returning. After dessert, she rose, gathering my plate and Adam's. I can help, I offered, starting to stand. No, I've got it, Riley. You and Adam have a lot to talk about. You boys go do your thing, she said, her warm smile a gentle dismissal. Adam and I stepped into the greenhouse after dinner, following Evelyn's not-so-subtle nudge. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers, but Adam halted abruptly just inside the threshold.
Evelyn, do not get her hopes up. Do not ever deceive her like that again. Do I make myself clear, Riley?
He said, his voice cold and detached, his back to me, the words slicing through the humid stillness. Shame weighed heavy in my chest as I replied, You're right, Adam. I got carried away in the absurdity of the situation. I meant no disrespect or to be deceptive, my tone laced with regret. He turned to face me, his expression hard.
Good,
he stated bluntly, then pivoted and continued deeper into the greenhouse.
Don't think for a second the irony isn't lost on me, kid. Of course, you'd find yourself a good woman who's been dead for decades and tried to kill you,
he muttered, half aloud, as he brushed past a row of orchids, inspecting their delicate petals with a distracted air. His words caught me off guard, disarming me completely. Who was this man? I'd braced for a fight, expecting his usual gruff reprimand, but here he was, not only acknowledging the truth of Lila's ghost, but implying he'd known all along. I stammered, struggling to form a response. But he cut me off sharply.
I ain't got all night to listen to you stutter with that stupid look on your face. I'll do us both a favor and cut through the shit,
he snapped, fixing me with a look that pinned me like a child, his head nodding slowly, eyebrows arched in expectation. I stared back, utterly bewildered, shock rendering me mute.
Good,
he said, taking my stunned silence as assent.
I'll take that look on your face as a yes. Your grandfather Riley, he's a great man, one of the few I respect down to their core. Your father was another.
He paused, his gaze steady, ensuring I wasn't too dazed to absorb his words.
Anyways, he feels you're ready to hear what I'm about to tell you. Don't dishonor him by proving me right,
he continued, his tone heavy with skepticism, making it clear he doubted my readiness. I'm all ears, Adam. I need to know, I replied, my voice firm with newfound confidence.
Well, all right then,
he responded, then strode to the corner of the greenhouse, where he opened a panel I'd assumed was merely electrical. He flipped a sequence of breakers with deliberate precision before closing it. A few seconds later, the center of the greenhouse floor rumbled and parted, revealing a hidden staircase descending into darkness. He gestured for me to head down, and I complied, reluctance gnawing at me, Adam trailing close behind. You and Evelyn, I began, but he shut me down with a gruff,
Shut the hell up, kid.
At the bottom of the stairs, lights flickered on, revealing a subterranean space roughly 20 feet long by 15 feet wide, with 3 doors branching off, likely to other rooms, I figured. A faint hum emanated from the monitors, adding an eerie undercurrent to the scene. It felt like a scene ripped from a spy movie, though far less glamorous. Desks were scattered with maps pinned to the walls, marked with lines and colored pins, alongside file cabinets, monitors, and computers. Standard office fare, but with an air of secrecy. Another stairway, possibly an entrance from inside the house, caught my eye. It made logistical sense, though I couldn't be sure. The doors bore keypad locks, hinting that the real intrigue might lie behind them. Adam settled at one of the desks, motioning for me to take the seat at the desk beside him.
Have a seat, kid,
he said. As I sat, the entrance we'd descended through sealed shut with a low thud. I watched, wide-eyed, unable to hide my amazement.
This ain't nothing, Riley,
he said, his tone dismissive of my awe. He leaned back in his chair, his expression unyielding, and began to explain.
I'm not retired. I work for an off-record agency, a division, if you will. Not officially part of the FBI or any other organization. I transferred here about 5 years ago for strategic purposes, officially retired from the FBI. That's why Evelyn and I moved here. The division started about 15 years ago, growing into what it is today. Myself, your father, and, reluctantly, your grandfather were among the original founders. I now lead it. Your grandfather could be considered second in command, though he despises formal titles.
He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over me. My father? A founder? The thought jolted through me, a piece of my past I'd never glimpsed.
You understand me, Riley?
He asked, impatience edging his voice. Yes, continue, please, I replied, a torrent of questions bubbling up, though I knew their time would come. He pressed on.
As I'm sure your grandfather explained, we don't always see eye to eye, share the same beliefs, or find the same truths. But we fundamentally agree on one core element, the one that matters. Right and wrong, benevolent and malevolent. There are things in this world neither of us fully understands. Things that happen, things we can prevent. Our main goal here is to keep people safe from those things as best we can, without causing panic or fear among folks in this great nation. We each bring a perspective vital to this mission's success. I focus on the things that go bump in the night, and he focuses on that realm you want to marry into.
He paused again, his last remark a pointed jab at the Lila situation. I tried to respond, but my words tangled into stutters. I faltered.
Spit it out, Riley,
he barked, cutting through my hesitation. So many questions, Adam, I blurted, the words spilling out like verbal chaos.
In time, Riley. Just listen for now,
he said, his tone uncharacteristically calm, a rarity for Adam. As he leaned forward, hands clasped, his focus unwavering. After several moments that stretched like hours, I found myself lost in thought, staring into the void, weighing the flood of questions swirling in my mind. I knew I had to select the most vital one, the question that mattered most. This was a test, a crucible to prove my readiness. Our earlier exchange at Rusty's had likely been a trial as well, a subtle vetting I hadn't fully grasped until now. Adam cast occasional glances at the monitors, as if tracking some unseen signal, while I wrestled with my thoughts. Finally, I broke the silence, my voice slipping out almost unconsciously as my mind churned. Why though? I muttered aloud, barely aware of my own words, so deep was I in reflection.
Why what?
Adam snapped, jolting me back to the present. Why, Adam? Why the test at Rusty's, and why are you telling me all this now and not before? I clarified, my tone steadying as I met his gaze. His expression shifted from boredom to intrigue, then softened with a trace of pride.
Your instincts are solid, Riley, but don't rely on them so heavily,
he said.
That being said, yes, it was a test. More of a vetting, really. There are forces of and not of this earth that pose a danger, and you never know when or where they'll find you. I needed to ensure you weren't consumed by something not of this world.
He paused, raising an eyebrow as if to say, You catch my drift, kid. The word consumed echoed. My father had let his mind devour him, and I recalled Adam's hand hovering near his shotgun, ready to act if needed, the pieces clicking into place. I knew the question I wanted to ask next, but held back. There'd be another time for that. I nodded in acknowledgement, signaling I grasped his meaning.
We risk infiltration all the time, Riley. This isn't a game or a movie. People die. Your cover will keep you alive.
He continued, poised to elaborate, but I cut him off. You want me to join the division, I stated, my voice brimming with confidence. You said not to continue to rely so much on my instincts. Your cover will keep you alive. The first implies future training to hone them. The second was a warning of the consequence for letting my guard down. I finished, my assurance unshaken. Adam's face lit up, beaming for him at least like a proud father might.
Very good, Riley. Your father would be proud. He was a master at reading between the lines,
he said, a wide smile breaking through. But that smile vanished as quickly as it came.
Your grandfather wants you here working with us. I'm extremely reluctant,
he added, his tone turning cold and detached. You want to keep me safe. You don't think I'm ready, but you like the idea of me being here to keep a better eye on me, I replied, fully understanding his detachment as a shield. His eyes locked onto mine. radiating a silent pain. In that instant, I saw it clearly. His hardness toward me since my father's death, his casual nudges for me to move closer, all stemmed from a desire to protect me, even from myself, to mold me into a better man than my father had become. He couldn't save him, but he might help me save myself. "Thank you, Tex," I said, gratitude thick in my voice. For a fleeting second, I glimpsed a shimmer of moisture in his eyes before the gruff mask returned.
"I checked the tapes, kid, while you were off playing in the desert,"
he said, shifting gears.
"You'll find them interesting."
I nodded, turning toward the monitor on his desk. I scooted my chair closer for a better view, following his gaze. "What did you find?" I asked, my curiosity genuine. He watched a few edited clips, and then he paused the video. Adam stood behind the bar, a decent crowd milling about the tavern.
"Watch,"
he said, hitting play. In the footage, he remained nearly motionless, almost in a trance, as people moved around him, until after a few seconds, he stepped away to speak with someone at the bar. "What did I just watch, Tex?" I asked, suspecting I already knew the answer.
"Watch this,"
he said, pulling up another file. The low-quality outdoor footage showed the parking lot long after the bar had closed. Me pulling up on the Ducati, dismounting, and walking to where Lila had stood that night, though she was absent. "That's embarrassing," I admitted, and then it clicked as Adam stared at me, waiting for me to connect the dots. "Wait, so the first video was the girl you talked to who was asking about me?" I blurted out.
"Exactly,"
he confirmed. Then he opened another file, methodically advancing frame by frame until he stopped. There was Lila, standing alone in a corner, her eyes unnaturally bright, reflecting like a deer caught in headlights.
"That's her,"
Adam stated, retrieving the envelope I'd handed him 2 weeks ago before I could confirm it.
"Information you shouldn't have,"
he mocked, echoing my own words from that day as he unsealed it. Inside was the letter I'd written. Brunette, porcelain skin, gray eyes, red dress, alluring. A vintage Bond girl. He looked up from the letter, his focus returning to the screen. A soft creak of the stairs announced Evelyn's presence before her voice broke the silence from behind us. "Who is she?" she asked. Startled, I turned to face her, while Adam's gaze remained fixed on the monitor. I hadn't realized how long she'd been there or heard her approach.
"I have no idea,"
Adam responded after a tense pause.
"but Riley's gonna find out. His grandfather said she will be the final challenge in his rite of passage,"
he added, now facing Evelyn. She nodded, then turned to me. "She's beautiful, Riley, but dangerous," she said, concern shadowing her eyes. I knew her worry wasn't for my safety. She'd pieced together that this was the girl I'd joked about earlier, my expression betraying the truth, as much as her gaze revealed her real concern. She forced a smile to ease the tension. "I just came down to see if you boys needed anything and to check how it was going. The suspense was killing me," she said with a laugh. Her laugh injected a much-needed burst of levity into the tense air, transforming this heavy exchange from a mere data dump into a genuine human moment. Even Adam's rigid posture softened slightly, the weight on his shoulders easing for a breath. "Well, I'll get back upstairs and let you two continue," she said, steering the moment back to business with a gentle resolve. Adam offered her a warm smile as she turned away, and I realized she'd descended not just out of curiosity, but to be his emotional anchor. Overwhelmed by the flood of information, I hadn't paused to consider how taxing this revelation and the prospect of my joining the division might be for him as well. "She knows," I stated, breaking the quiet that followed her departure. He turned to face me, his expression tinged with regret.
"Yes,"
he replied, the word carrying a hint of sorrow.
"Not everything, but she knows enough to keep her safe. She doesn't want to know everything. He
finished. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of his words settling before he spoke again.
"If you join Riley, there are sacrifices you will need to make. Your name, for example, there is power in your true name. You will be given a new name."
I cut him off, excitement bubbling up like a child's, a code name? I asked, my voice bright with anticipation.
An alias, Riley.
He said, utterly unamused, his tone flattening the enthusiasm.
Your grandfather suggested one. I can't help but feel like he chose it purposely to annoy me,
he continued, but I interrupted again. Black Horse? I asked, my enthusiasm waning, hoping it wasn't the one. Adam's eyebrow lifted slightly, a subtle reaction to my tone.
As I was saying,
he pressed on.
I don't think it was meant to annoy me, which makes it perfect, Mr. Black Horse.
He finished, a grin stretching ear to ear. I knew it, I thought. That explained my grandfather's chuckle and his fascination with the Ducati. I felt like the punchline of an inside joke nested within another inside joke.
I told him you'd love it, which makes me smile,
he continued, that grin lingering.
You don't choose your alias, kid, it's earned. For some reason, people think I speak with an accent,
he said, his voice turning serious. I gave him a look that asked, You're kidding, right? He shrugged in response.
I don't hear it, but whatever. Your grandfather always called me it and it stuck,
he said, a slight chuckle breaking through his gruff exterior. What is his alias? I asked, curiosity piqued.
The Singer,
he answered, flat and matter of fact. Both aliases made sense, and unfortunately, so did mine. Perhaps I'd grow to like it, I thought, though doubt already crept in.
There are more serious sacrifices, but it's getting late and we can discuss those at another time. I don't think your nomadic lifestyle will be in too much conflict with them anyway,
he said, shifting the focus. What would I do in the division? I asked, trying to mentally anchor myself in this uncharted world.
In short, we need you to be a liaison, investigator, negotiator, and possibly an enforcer,
he answered, his tone straightforward.
If you decide to join, you will be given training, lots of training. I'll ensure you are cleared for access, but it's up to you to earn the respect of the instructors and fellow recruits. There is no favoritism here. Your grandfather and I expect nothing but the best from you. Do not dishonor either of us, understood?
He finished, his stare piercing through me. The last thing I ever want to do is let either of you down, I replied, genuine emotion threading my voice.
It's settled then. Go home, get some rest, deal with your drama, and get back to me. I won't accept an answer tonight, nor will I allow you in until you do. Your father and I did the best we could to make you a man worth a damn. Let's see if your grandfather's polishing has produced a diamond or a stone,
he said, concluding all he had to impart for now. Upstairs, I hugged Evelyn goodbye on my way out the door, telling her, I'll be back to see you as soon as I can. The hesitation stemmed from my reluctance to repeat my usual vague promises of soon or in a few days, which we both knew stretched the truth generously. I sat outside on the Ducati for a few minutes before starting it, lost in a swirl of thoughts and questions. I had much to digest mentally over the next few days, but first, I had to find Lila. Our reunion would shape my next path, whatever that might be. I fired up the bike, leaving the neighborhood as quietly as possible, unwilling to shatter the night's stillness. More than 2 weeks had passed since I last returned to the shop, and rolling into the lot stirred a mix of familiarity and estrangement, as if I were visiting an old comrade rather than coming home. As I pushed open the door, a wave of familiar scents engulfed my senses. Oily metal, aged wood, and a hint of gasoline. Stronger now, yet oddly dormant, as though they'd lain neglected, awaiting rediscovery. Then a sharper odor cut through. Yep, I muttered aloud, as the stench of trash overdue for removal and the sour tang of spoiling food assaulted my nostrils. For the next 4 hours, I tackled the fridge, hauling out the kitchen waste, driven not by necessity, but by a relentless focus to restore order. The shop area and small apartment upstairs had always been my haven of cleanliness, but the 10 days before my journey to my grandfather's had left them in disarray. My personal transformation since demanded I purge those lingering traces of chaos from my life. Tasks I'd deferred for months were finally addressed. A need to align my surroundings with the newfound harmony within me taking hold. Once finished, I lingered under a long, hot shower, rinsing away the road dust and desert grit from my travels. Settling onto my worn leather couch, refreshed yet unmotivated to start a movie, I simply sat, soaking in the grounded stillness of the moment, as if I'd exorcised several demons from my space. When I purchased the place 2 years ago, it was little more than a weathered relic of Route 66, a former glorified gas station. The previous owner had begun converting into a motorcycle shop before selling it off. It was affordable, meeting my basic needs: shelter, a workspace, and a home. Nothing extravagant. The 60-foot by 40-foot structure boasted stunning desert vistas, its charm lying in its raw potential. The 4 gas pumps had vanished long ago, but their weathered awning lingered, casting shade over empty ground. The 2 service bays remained, equipped with operational lifts, a significant boon. The customer area, a spacious 15 by 20-foot space, once housed shelves stocked with road snacks, drinks, maps, and traveler's essentials. At the rear, ample storage awaited parts and goods. Above, the second floor held a 2-bedroom apartment, a patchwork home to generations of station and shopkeepers. I built upon the previous owner's efforts, fully transforming it into a motorcycle shop as my primary focus, though I retained the auto lifts for the occasional car or truck repair. One service bay now stored bikes, while the other housed 2 bike lifts. I repurposed the customer area into a modest showroom and a gathering spot for people to linger. It was straightforward, functional, yet now it demanded change. My mind buzzed with ideas, sketching plans in my head, refining details with meticulous care. I'm not certain how long I sat there, lost in a meditative trance over them. Glancing at my phone, I noted the late hour and resolved to rest. Morning would arrive too swiftly, heralding the next chapter of my path. When I awoke, the morning had stretched well into its later hours, and I rose feeling refreshed, the deepest, most restorative sleep I'd known in a month, perhaps longer, unmarred by dreams. Just a profound, unbroken peace. Energized to seize the day, I had tasks awaiting me. After dressing, I ate the scant remnants salvaged from the fridge the previous night, then rolled the few bikes out of the storage bay to make room. I maneuvered the Ranger inside, intent on ensuring she was primed for the journey ahead. The desert stretch I needed to reach offered no roads, and while the truck wasn't the ideal vehicle for this venture, I held a quiet confidence in her ability to endure with minimal trouble. Once I'd given her a thorough once-over and declared her fit, I stowed my backpack in the truck bed alongside an empty cooler. Behind the extended cab seats, I secured my Winchester Model 94, a few boxes of 30-30 ammo, and assorted supplies. On the passenger seat, I placed my Colt Trooper Mark III, a relic by modern standards, yet a cherished companion from my father's hands, ever present on my desert treks. I backed the Ranger out of the bay, poised to depart. A final check confirmed I had the essentials, and I jotted a list of what I lacked. Food and water, chief among them, to procure en route. I rolled into Hank Carver's general store 15 minutes later, list in hand, confident he'd stock most, if not all, of what I required. "Hey, Riley," Hank greeted as I stepped inside, his voice a warm rumble. "Hey, how's it going?" I replied, approaching him with a nod. "I'm headed out to the desert for a bit and need a few things," I continued, extending my hand in greeting. He clasped it with a grip like a bear trap, firm yet welcoming, his calloused hands a testament to years of rugged work. "I gotcha, what you need?" he asked, eager to assist. "Not much," I responded, lifting my list to read from, but he gently took it from my grasp to scan it himself. "I've got most of that," he said with unwavering confidence. "Awesome," I replied with a grin. "Hey," he called over to his daughter, who lounged behind the register, boredom etched on her face, headphones cocooning her in her own world. She reluctantly slid them off, casting him a look of subtle irritation. "Gather up these things for Mr. Riley, please," he requested, his tone firm, yet laced with warmth. "That's not necessary, Hank. I began, but he cut me off. "No, she's not paid to stand there keeping the floor from floating away," he said, more to her than to me, a hint of jest in his voice. She sauntered over, snatched the list from his hand with a touch of sass, and flashed me a smile. I returned it with, "I'm sorry, I tried, really I did," my tone serious, yet tinged with sarcasm. "How are things going at the shop?" Hank asked as she walked off. "Okay, I guess, steady work for the most part," I answered. Hank was a customer, a good man, easygoing and laid back, the kind who needed no effort to project toughness or intimidation, his towering frame well over 6 feet, and the bulk of a professional wrestler doing that for him. He carried a calming presence wherever he went, a gentle giant. "Seen the shop looked empty for a while. Figured I'd ask," he stated, subtly probing for an explanation. "Yeah. I rode out to the res with the intention of maybe a day or two, but it turned into a few weeks instead," I answered, addressing his unspoken curiosity. "Ah, the res? That's a bit of a hike. Good ride, though," he responded, piecing together the mystery of my absence. 2 weeks? He asked, his curiosity piqued. "Family, it had been too long since I'd been there. I had a lot of catching up to do," I replied, drawing a faintly confused look from him. "My mother, she was Diné, Navajo," I clarified, restoring clarity to his expression. "No shit, that's cool, man," he said with a genuine smile. "I just saw that you were out of town, so kept an eye on the place for you best I could," he continued. "Thanks, appreciate it, man," I responded, my gratitude sincere. "No problem, any time. This another excursion you're taking now?" he probed. "No, I don't think so. Maybe a day or two at the most," I said, uncertainty threading my tone. "Right," he responded, sarcasm dripping from the word. "I'll keep an eye on the place for you until you get back," he finished, stepping away to answer the store phone. "Thanks," I replied as he moved off. Hank's house wasn't far from the shop, and I had no doubt he'd watch over it. "Here you go, Mr. Riley," Maddie said, pushing a cart toward me. "Thank you," I said, taking it and heading to her register. "No problem, I was bored anyways," she replied, her voice heavy with teenage angst. She rang up my items, bagged them efficiently, and I handed her cash once she finished. She smiled, passing me the change. "Wish I was going with you," she said, catching me off guard. "That bored?" I replied with a light chuckle. My humor didn't land, and she shot me an annoyed glance, rolling her eyes in exasperation. "Well, it's not a vacation, if that makes you feel better," I stated, matter of fact. "No. Then why are you going out there?" she asked, genuinely perplexed. "There's something I need to take care of. It's personal," I explained, a note of reservation in my voice. I turned to Hank, still on his call, and waved goodbye. "See you around, Maddie," I said, heading to the door. The weight of this journey began to settle heavily upon me. 3 hours into the desert, the world was just me and the Ranger, its tires chewing through rugged trails where roads had long vanished. The truck was a beast, steady, uncomplaining, a mule, as my grandfather might have called it with a wry grin. The engine purred, its temp gauge unwavering, the stock suspension shrugging off the rocky terrain. Mid-spring kept the heat bearable, maybe 90 degrees with the sun dipping toward the western horizon, casting long shadows that warned of sunset's approach. Grandfather always said my ancestors would guide me during the ceremony, but out here, I felt no whispers, no nudge toward the sacred spot I sought. Maybe I was blind to their signs. I knew the rough area, but that was all. Another hour of driving, wore on the Ranger, and me. I cut the ignition, stepped out, and grabbed a cold bottle from the cooler, gulping it down. "A hat," I muttered, irritation biting my voice. Why the hell didn't I bring one? The sun's glare mocked my oversight. I scanned the horizon, piecing together my bearings. Somewhere north of Alameda, probably, on the east side of the Canadian River. That much I could pin down. I needed to focus, to let instinct take over, to feel the pulse of the land. Then it hit me. "The ram," I said aloud, the realization sharp. I'd passed it earlier, its proud silhouette etched against the sky, but I'd dismissed it as nothing. Out here, I'd seen plenty of wildlife. Coyotes, hawks, snakes, but not today. The desert silence was deafening, and that ram's presence carried weight. I grabbed my backpack, stuffed it with water bottles, and slung it over one shoulder. From the passenger seat, I retrieved my Winchester, a smaller bag, and the keys from the ignition. The Colt was already snug at my right hip, a familiar weight. With the Winchester slung over my left shoulder and the small bag, holding the ceremonies' heart, clutched tight, I trekked back toward to where the ram last stood. Minutes later, I reached the spot, but the ram had vanished. I climbed the rocky ledge where it had stood, proud and stoic, watching me. At the top, I caught my breath and scoured the ground. There, its tracks, faint but clear, leading off into the distance. I followed. The ram's tracks drew me deeper into the desert, the sun a fiery sliver on the horizon, its fading light staining the sand with hues of blood and shadow. The air thickened with each step, my boots crunching over the scuffed terrain. To the south, a faint rustle caught my ear. An inquisitive coyote stood amid the brush several yards off, probing my presence with wary eyes. We shared a fleeting moment, a silent acknowledgement, before it darted back into the cover of the rugged landscape. I pressed on, following the tracks. Darkness loomed close, and I needed to pursue them while they remained visible. The trail descended into a low canyon, its walls rising along the east and west. With twilight teetering on the edge of night, I decided to make camp. It took mere minutes to pitch my small tent, lining its interior with the horse blanket gifted to me days ago by the tribal elder, its coarse weave a comforting anchor. I gathered a modest pile of wood, arranging a fire ring with nearby stones, and had the flames crackling and roaring by the time blackness swallowed the desert. I sat, gazing into the dancing flames, losing track of time, as shapes and figures flickered within them, indistinct, like a TV signal struggling through static. A sudden hunger broke my trance, my eyes locking onto my backpack. I hadn't even checked the meals Maddie had picked at Hank's General Store. Back then, my mind had been too fixed on the journey ahead, my list simply noting freeze-dried meals. I reached in, expecting little, but found myself pleasantly surprised. Chili mac, beef stew, chicken and rice, 2 breakfast skillets, a perfect mix and quantity for 2 nights in the desert. Despite her teenage angst and sharp sass, Maddie had clearly listened to my exchange with her father, choosing with care. She was growing into a thoughtful young woman. Despite herself, I mused, a smile tugging at my lips as I chuckled. The thought stirred memories of myself at her age. Reckless, stubborn, but learning. "Thank you, Maddie," I said aloud, gratitude and relief softening my tone. I dug into my pack again, pulling out my Stanley Adventure pot, nestled alongside my MSR pocket rocket and fuel canister. Chili mac, I decided, would be tonight's meal. An hour after eating, I sat by the fire, still trying to decipher the elusive shapes in the flames, when a low growl rumbled from the west. I knew its source before I turned. A black bear lumbered from the trees, pausing to survey the scene. My hand instinctively crept toward my Winchester, my heart thundering as we froze, each sizing the other up. Then, a realization struck. The ram, the coyote, now this bear. I'd seen no wildlife all day, not even a bird. An anomaly as striking as the sudden flurry of encounters over the past few hours. My hand shifted away from the rifle, reaching instead for the small bag my grandfather had given me for this journey. I eased it open, retrieving a small container of corn pollen. Rising slowly, I faced the bear. It swayed slightly, as if torn between flight and charge. I approached with deliberate, soft steps, my left palm open at my side, my right hand offering the container. Closing the distance, I halted and the bear reared up. I opened the container with care, sprinkling the pollen onto the ground, and stepped back, widening the gap between us. The bear dropped to all fours, lumbering toward the offering, sniffing cautiously as it approached. It reached the pollen, inspecting it for what felt like an eternity while I stood frozen, my heart pounding against my ribs. Satisfied at last, it turned and ambled back into the trees, vanishing into the darkness as if our encounter had never occurred. I exhaled heavily, no memory of holding my breath, relief washing over me in waves. I shook my head, still breathless. Holy crap, Riley. It's time for bed, I mumbled, my voice trembling with the aftershock. I stirred at dawn, the desert cloaked in an eerie silence. Despite the bear's unsettling visit, my sleep had been restful, strangely soothing. I cast a suspicious glance at the horse blanket, its traditional Navajo shapes and symbols weaving a hypnotic spell over me. A saddle blanket, I realized, not a horse blanket, and chuckled softly at my own oversight. So much of my heritage still lay waiting to be rediscovered. Dreams, I blurted, the words shattering my waking haze. My dreams had been a tangle of conflict and harmony, sorrow and joy. But one image burned brighter than the rest, a Joshua tree, encircled by small stones. The vision was hazy, its clarity slipping from my grasp like sand through fingers, leaving only fragmented echoes behind. I packed my gear into my backpack, murmuring another thanks to Maddie for the breakfast, then picked up the ram's tracks and pressed north in pursuit, the sun just cresting the horizon. The terrain soon turned rocky, the jagged ground making pursuit a grueling task. I found myself backtracking, caught in frustrating loops, my irritation mounting as the sun climbed directly overhead. Seeking respite, I settled in the shade of a tree to heat up some stew. As I took my first bite, I glanced eastward. There, atop a rock ledge, some 200 yards off, stood the ram I'd been chasing, its gaze fixed on me. We locked eyes as I ate, a silent communion, its hooves scraping the ledge with a faint, urgent rasp, until it turned slowly northeast and vanished just as I finished my meal. I reached its perch, but it was gone. Scanning for tracks, a sudden commotion erupted about 50 yards away, branches snapping, rocks tumbling from the direction the ram had taken. The noise was too heavy for a ram, I thought. Then came a haunting cry, a ring-wraith's wail, straight out of Lord of the Rings, followed by shorter, barking echoes of the same eerie tone. A shiver ran down my spine at the unearthly sound. An elk? I muttered aloud, puzzled. It made little sense. This rugged terrain wasn't their typical haunt, and the location felt all wrong for a herd. I slid my Winchester off my shoulder, chambering around with a satisfying clack of the lever action, and crept toward the tree line to investigate. I edged through the tree line, Winchester clutched tight. The lever's clack, a fading echo in my mind against the charged desert air. The commotion, splintered branches, scattered rocks, that ring-wraith wail, and its barking echoes clung to my skull, a nightmare that wouldn't fade. I tracked the chaos to its source, a young bull elk sprawled on the ground, its breaths ragged and shallow. Mortal wounds marred its body, deep gashes ripped across its hide, punctures and tears carved into its neck. Holy shit, I muttered, pity lacing my voice. This bull was done for, its life seeping into the dirt, its eyes locked with mine, brimming with fear, suffering, and a glint of regret. A loner, strayed from its herd, it had wandered too far, unprotected, and paid the ultimate price. I raised my Winchester, aligning the sights between its eyes, never breaking our gaze. In that moment, its stare pleaded, not for salvation, but for release. I lingered, the weight of its pain pressing against my chest, then slowly squeezed the trigger. The crack of the shot ricocheted off the canyon walls, its echo fading into the desert as the ringing in my ears dulled. I held my stance, Winchester steady, then slowly lowered it. With a deliberate pull, I worked the lever, the spent casing ejecting with a faint ping as it struck a small rock. matching the lingering hum in my head. I scanned the surroundings, eyes darting through the brush, ears straining for any hint of what had torn into the bull. Nothing stirred, no rustle, no snap. I fed another round into the Winchester's chamber, its soft clack piercing the heavy silence. Kneeling, I eased my backpack off, still sweeping the area for movement, especially up in the shadowed branches. My fingers found the empty shell, tucking it into my pocket, then pulled an empty water bottle from the pack. I approached the bull, bottle in one hand, Winchester in the other. Kneeling beside its still form, I set the bottle beneath a deep puncture wound, letting its blood pool inside. When I'd gathered enough, I sealed it and rose, turning back to my pack. As I slung it over my shoulders, a flash of movement stopped me cold. 15 yards west, a mountain lion stood, its sleek bulk nearly invisible against the brush. I froze, heart kicking, then eased back, never turning from its gaze, edging northeast along the ram's path. The lion shadowed me, but paused at the bull's carcass. Our eyes locked as I halted, and in hers, I saw exhaustion, a bone-deep weariness. From the corner of my vision, 2 cubs slipped from the undergrowth, their small forms hesitant. A mother, feeding her family. That's why she'd risked such a brutal strike. I slung the Winchester over my shoulder, giving her a slow nod, a gesture of respect born more from awe at her fierce will to provide than for her alone. Her eyes softened, relief flickering through them, the silent promise of no further fight. I turned, resuming my journey, the weight of her stare fading behind me. The ram's tracks eluded me for hours, the rocky terrain thwarting my pursuit until the ground softened at last, the setting sun casting long shadows over the trail. After a quarter-mile of steady tracking, I stepped into a small clearing nestled among the trees. A flash of last night's dream seized me. A Joshua tree loomed near the clearing's heart, its gnarled arms stark against the fading light. I eased my backpack off, propping the Winchester against it. This was where I'd camp tonight, the end and beginning of this journey. Approaching the tree, I studied its base, a ring of small stones, weathered by time, encircled the ground a few feet away, not touching the tree but forming a ceremonial boundary. Faint symbols, carved and painted, clung to the rocks, their outlines barely visible, eroded by centuries. The tree itself stood ancient, a silent witness to ages of history and wisdom, its presence heavy with secrets. As twilight dissolved into the desert's black silence, I sat in quiet meditation, the tent pitched, my chicken and rice devoured, the fire roaring within the ceremonial ring. The past weeks had flooded me with questions and answers, a torrent I needed to sift through. I reached into the small bag my grandfather had given me, drawing out the vial of red dust, fused with Lila's remnant, and the ceremonial sand he'd used to try freeing her from the Norton. I uncapped the bottle of elk blood, blending it with ash from the fire, and traced the mixture across my face in deliberate patterns. My grandfather had warned this wouldn't be a traditional ceremony. My mixed blood clouded my sight, he'd said, and I'd need medicine to open my mind. But it came with risks. The ash would shield me. I pulled the plastic baggie of medicine from the bag, swallowing it with a gulp of water. As I waited for its effects, fragments of recent conversations surged through me. My grandfather's voice lingered. You'll make the right choice, whatever it is, when the time comes. I understood his faith in me, yet the choice, free Lila or bind her, remained a knot I couldn't untie. Adam's sly grin flashed, his quip about marrying into Lila's world hitting too close. Lila fought to stay, no longer bound to this world, yet tethered by her own will, my grandfather had said. What did she want? A warmth spread through me, my nerves crackling with electric tension, a restless readiness simmering within. The medicine was kicking in. Your ancestors will guide you, my grandfather's words echoed as the first wave hit. I began chanting, the words foreign yet familiar, spilling from me unbidden. The flame's shapes sharpened, clarity washing over me like a tide. The weight of my ancestors' shared lives nearly overwhelmed me, but I was braced for it, ready. This entire desert trek was a ceremony, a rite of passage. The absence of wildlife, then the sudden encounters. It was them. The ram, my guide. The coyote, approaching from the south, a positive sign. The bear, heralding rebirth into a new world. The elk, a sacrifice, a reminder of the old path I'd left behind. The mountain lion, a nurturing spirit, fierce and protective, offering guidance. Lila. Another wave crashed, and I became them, living their lives as my own. The ram's unerring path through the desert. The coyote's sharp trust in the unseen. The bear's emergence into a new dawn. The elk's lonely fall for another salvation. The lion's fierce devotion to those she guarded, entwined with Lila. I was each. In that moment, I saw myself. The ram's guidance growing within me. The coyote's intuition sharpening. The bear's rebirth unfolding. The lion's partnership with Lila blooming. But the elk's sacrifice cut deepest. A part of me, the loner, the wanderer, that had to die for my rebirth. The medicine's power surged, and I saw, truly saw, as Lila had said weeks ago, her essence before death and the spirit she'd become after. A red glow pulsed from the Joshua tree, the crossroads heart. Energy lines wove through the desert, threading the sky, alive and vibrant. Sounds roared, every desert whisper, amplified past distortion, mingled with alien hums of machines and unnameable things. Just as it peaked, threatening to shatter me, it stopped. Deafening silence. Utter blackness. I floated there, suspended in nothingness, time stretching into eternity. A faint orange glow emerged before me, coalescing into the fire's flicker, illuminating only the Joshua tree.
Hello, Riley.
A voice called from behind the tree. Lila's, clear and warm. The first time I'd heard it in nearly a month. Joy surged through me, her gray eyes meeting mine as she stepped from the shadows, her presence radiant and timeless. Lila crossed the clearing and settled opposite me by the fire. Her porcelain skin, flowing dark hair, red dress, and gray eyes still hypnotized me the same as the first day we met. Except here in this place, her presence was calming, soothing.
I missed you, Riley.
She said, her warm smile laced with excitement and anticipation. I missed you too, Red, I replied, relief softening my voice. Where you been? I asked, my curiosity genuine.
I'm not really sure.
She answered, her gaze drifting as if piecing together an unfamiliar dream. Do you know how long it's been since the last time we saw each other? I pressed.
I'm not sure. Time moves differently for me now. Ever since we rode to your shop, I was forced to leave as dawn broke over the horizon. I lingered for a few moments while transitioning, long enough to see your pain.
She explained, sorrow with a hint of guilt in her tone.
I was able to gather enough strength to say only a few words, to let you know that I was still there, with you.
She finished, tears beginning to form in her eyes. You've been here ever since? I asked, compassion and understanding in my tone.
Ever since?
She confirmed with a nod. Did you reach out to me through the radio like you did before? I pressed further, attempting to piece together the whole picture. Confusion hit her face hard.
No.
She shot back in response, defensive.
Riley, there are things here that can...
She began, but I cut her off, not knowing how much time we had. I know, Red, but I think I know who it was, I explained, creating more confusion and concern in her gaze. What were you thinking? What were you hoping? While you've been here? I asked, piecing it together. Lila hesitated, a flush of embarrassment giving way to vulnerability.
I was hoping you would be able to find me somehow, that you'd realize what had happened, but mostly, I was in turmoil. I couldn't see you, but I could feel you. There was no way for me to communicate with you. I couldn't even show you I was still here, waiting,
she confessed. You were eyes without a face, had no human grace, I responded, piecing the mystery together in my head.
Yes,
she burst out, tears now falling. I smiled warmly, compassionate. It was the Ducati, Red, I explained, fully understanding, optimism in my tone, lifting the mood.
Yes,
she blurted again, understanding and relief in her tone, a smile breaking through her sorrow.
I can feel the Ducati as well, but it's distant, just beyond my reach, like it won't fully let me in, she explained,
wiping the tears from her eyes, laughing at the absurdity of it all. It's been protecting me, I realized. From what, though? I freed you, Red. Why did you stick around? Why didn't you move on? I asked, already sensing the answer.
Do you want me to move on, Riley?
She countered, a trace of hurt threading her voice. That's not what I'm implying, Red. You don't belong here anymore. I thought you wanted freedom, the ability to move on, free from the Norton. I responded, a hint of uncertainty creeping into my tone.
I did want freedom, to escape the Norton. I've been fighting the pull to move on since that night, and it's getting harder and harder to remain. It's not safe for me here,
she explained. Why? Why have you fought against it? What continues to keep you here? I asked, the urgency of needed truth in my tone.
You, Riley. I had just found you. I don't want to lose you. I'm scared to move on. I have nothing for me on the other side,
she revealed, her voice vulnerable, pleading.
I stay for you,
she added, her words hanging heavy. I know, Red, but I don't want to keep you here. To prevent you from... I began. But she cut me off, her tone sharp yet calm.
We made a deal, Riley.
Her eyes locked with mine, devoid of hostility.
A promise to each other. I have no intention of ever breaking that promise. You are and forever will be the only one I've ever given my complete heart and soul to,
she explained, the words carrying a profound weight for us both. She smiled, warm and open, pleading for my acceptance. Same for me, Red. That's why I'm here, I explained, my words an affirmation she needed to hear, feel. I watched the waves of relief wash over her as I spoke. It's settled then, I said, revealing the Ducati's headlight from behind me. It flashed a dull beam as if beckoning to be heard. We don't have much time, I urged. I reached into the bag my grandfather gave me, removing all of its contents and laying them out before me, one by one. An eagle feather, an ancient arrowhead, a leather cord, a rattlesnake rattle, a pouch containing a blend of pollens and medicines, a pouch of ceremonial sand, a small pottery bowl, a bear tooth, and a piece of turquoise stone. I looked up at Lila. This is gonna get weird, I explained, a faint smirk tugging at my lips.
All of this is weird,
she replied, smooth and unruffled. Seriously, I won't fully be here when it starts. But trust me. Trust the ceremony, I stated, my voice steady and grounded. She nodded once, acceptance and understanding gleaming in her eyes. I rose from my seated position, placing the arrowhead, eagle feather, turquoise stone, and bear tooth into the shape of a diamond on the ground, representing the 4 cardinal directions. I then unwound the leather cord, crafting a circle around them. In the center, I positioned the small pottery bowl and emptied the pouch of pollens and medicines into it. With a stick, I gathered ash from the fire, stirring it into the bowl, and began chanting the rhythm my grandfather had taught me. Once blended, I continued the chant, sprinkling the mixture outward, tracing the circle with care. Then I took the pouch of ceremonial sand, emptying it into the center. On top, I placed the Ducati's headlight, its beam no longer illuminated. I uncorked the vial containing the fusion of ceremonial sand and Lila's essence, sprinkling it slowly over the headlight. When the last grain fell, I ceased chanting. I reached for the bottle of elk blood, the sacrifice necessary for my rebirth, the symbolic death of who I was, the path I was on. I slowly poured it around the circle, chanting a different rhythm, one of reverence, honoring the young bull. Once the circle was complete, I grabbed the rattlesnake rattle and began shaking it, steady and purposeful, matching the rhythm my grandfather had drilled into me. 2 different rhythms at once, the rattle, my chants. It took all of my concentration to maintain them both. I stopped suddenly, as both rhythms reached their simultaneous crescendo, their echoes carrying off into the darkness where I saw figures and shadows, waiting for their opportunity to exploit my resolve. I glanced at Lila, her face alight with intrigue. "I'll see you on the other side, Red," I said, grinning. She nodded again, silent, trust and acceptance in her eyes. I turned my focus back to the circle and resumed chanting, syncing my voice to the rattle's rhythm. The medicine's effects surged through me again, a jolt of electric energy and strength, my ancestors merging into the space we occupied, into the ceremony, then into me, hitting like a crashing wave. Just before the wave fully engulfed me, a coyote's call echoed in the distance, barking rapidly, its high-pitched wails blending into the rite's cadence, a positive sign. The next morning, I awoke in my tent, no memory of what transpired. After the coyote's barks joined the chorus of the ceremony, I was physically exhausted, beyond what the 2-day trek through the desert warranted. Mentally, my mind was drained, battered by the overwhelming flood of medicine and the merging into the crossroad where Lila had waited. My protections and ancestors had kept us safe, but I glimpsed things there, entities lurking, poised to exploit any weakness, to breach the opening I had created and flood into this world. Holy shit, that was intense, I mumbled, the hangover of the experience weighing on me. I rolled over, draping the saddle blanket across my face to block the light, and fell back asleep. I awoke again several hours later, still drained but no longer hollow. After packing up my tent, I ate the last meal Maddie had selected for me. The meager breakfast skillet struck me like a feast, a memory that lingers as one of the most satisfying meals I've ever tasted. I knew I couldn't linger in that place. It wasn't safe to stay longer. With the sun nearly overhead, I began the hike back to the Ranger, uncertain of the distance I'd covered, unprepared for another night in the desert. "Birds," I said aloud, after an hour of hiking. They'd been absent the past 2 days, but now they sang and darted across the landscape. An eagle caught my eye as the realization dawned, circling overhead before veering west over the canyon's edge, vanishing from sight. "Understood," I said with a grateful chuckle. About 2 hours later, I reached the peak of the canyon's rim. From that vantage point, the Canadian River stretched to the west, as expected, and half a mile below, the Ranger waited patiently. "Thank you," I said, staring into the horizon, hoping the eagle received my gratitude. I returned to the shop just after dark, the drive a blur of reflection. My mind churned over the past month, especially the details I'd missed, now illuminated by the ceremony. Lila's spirit merging into the Ducati, only the turn signals flashing, the headlight dark, had felt wrong even then, the fracture of my bond with it. That's why it seemed different, why my grandfather had seen its incompleteness. It had awaited my choice while still protecting me. He'd prepared me for a ritual ceremony, its true purpose hidden from me at the time. I'd thought it was for Lila's passage, but I was mistaken. She was free, able to move on without it. The ceremony wasn't for her, it was for me, a choice unveiled. One path bound her to the Ducati, restoring its wholeness. The other let her go, mending my own fractured soul. Our unresolved bond left us both broken, needing closure, a resolution. He'd said I'd make the right decision, whichever it was. Adam's jab about marrying into her world, the Ducati reaching through the radio, Evelyn's recognition of my feelings for Lila, their exchange in the bunker, all were reflections guiding me to what I truly wanted. For Lila to remain, to continue our partnership, however it played out. She needed me, I needed her. Together we were stronger, poised to become a formidable team within the division. She was now bound to the Ducati, making it whole again, allowing her to stay safely in this world. Both were now steadfast guardians. My mixed heritage clouded my perception, but in Lila's presence, I saw with more clarity. Not as much medicine would be needed. Our bond between worlds now bridged that gap. These tangled thoughts and inner musings peaked as I rolled into the shop's parking lot. Killing the ignition, I looked up at the blank sign. I'd never named the place, never found the right word, until now. Reds. She'll love it, I said, laughing aloud. Black Horse, huh, I added, another laugh escaping. I had loathed the alias. As a kid in Texas, where teasing traditional names had cut deep, born of a desire to fit in. Adam knew those taunts, found traditional native names corny, and smiled at my grandfather's suggestion of it, knowing it would humble and ground me. Grandfather, though, perhaps he knew, perhaps not, but he grasped what I needed, to reclaim what I'd lost within, to become Black Horse. He was right, it's perfect, and I loved it. I truly earned it, but more importantly, I owned it now. After a quick shower, shave, and other grooming maintenance required after a month's neglect, I was ready to re-emerge into civilization, ready for my date. I descended to the bay housing the Ducati. The headlight needed reinstalling. As I finished mounting and connecting it, I leaned back. "Don't tease me, Red," I said with a chuckle. After a pause, it flashed bright, then dimmed. From behind, Lila's voice broke through.
"Hey, sexy, you clean up pretty nice,"
she said playfully. I turned. Nothing there. "Okay. We playing hide and seek?" I said, unamused.
"I'm different, Riley."
She responded from behind, a bashful tone in her voice. I turned again, still empty. "Different how, Red? Are you transparent now?" I asked, curiosity sparking, amusement growing. "You didn't turn into an old woman, did you?" I teased.
"No."
She replied, a trace of unease lingering. "Come on, Red, let's see it." "I'm getting dizzy talking in circles," I said, impatience creeping in.
"Fine,"
she said, a tinge of uncertainty in her tone, prompting one last turn. There she was, porcelain skin, gray eyes, her beautiful hair, now styled in a modern cut, the red dress replaced with a black one, just as alluring, topped with a leather riding jacket. I stood, speechless at her transformation. After a moment, she asked,
"You like it?"
Uneasiness tinged her voice. "No," I responded, a bit harsh. Her gaze dropped to the floor, as if I'd torn her heart out. "I love it, Red," I continued with a warm smile. "You look amazing," I finished. Her eyes lifted from the floor, searching mine with insecurity.
"You mean it?"
she asked, almost pleading. "Absolutely, Red," I replied, grinning ear to ear.
"I don't know if you can call me Red anymore."
She responded with a genuine laugh and sigh of relief. "You'll always be Red to me. That's the rules, I don't make 'em up," I said with a reassuring grin. She smiled back, a bit sheepishly, her head tilting down and to the side. "Well, damn, now I've gone and made a ghost blush. Told you, rules are rules, you're still Red," I said with a laugh.
Shut up, Riley.
She shot back, laughing herself.
Let's go.
She demanded playfully. Right, I agreed. You're already dressed for the road, I said with a wink, receiving a playful eye roll in return. Outside the shop, I fired up the Ducati, Lila's arms wrapped around me. Her perfume had returned, intoxicating, I thought as I inhaled, savoring it.
I've been waiting so long for this ride.
She whispered. Me too, Red. Me too, I responded, dropping the Ducati into gear, cracking the throttle, and accelerating off into the night. The stars pulsated differently now, more vibrant and intense. Along the desert terrain, there were unknown energy sources I could feel. Almost here, Lila's embrace was warm, comforting, a grounding presence among it all. Our road and fate was unknown. All that mattered was that we would ride it out, face whatever they brought, together. From Reaper's creepers, the unknown retreats, and the shadows release you, for now. Join us again to drift deeper into the dark.